And welcome to day 3 of Cook for Victory. My name is Maddie.
And my name is Millie, and tonight we are cooking at Cookery School at Little Portland Street.
Brief history about myself. I have been a pastry chef for over 10 years in Australia and cooking or teaching here at Cookery School for the last 3.
I was born in London and I did my professional training here at Cookery School, and before that was a private chef in Tuscany.
And our job over the next kind of 20 days, or we've done a few already, is to get you guys enthusiastic about cooking really, really delicious meals, seasoning, all the good stuff with really nice, simple ingredients that you can find anywhere, no added anythings. What are we doing tonight?
Yeah, tonight is no different. We are doing some lovely bread rolls. We're going to show you 2 different types of doughs, a wholemeal and a malt house, which is sort of like a slightly malty, sweet, granary style bread roll. And then we're going to do lots and lots of lovely fillings, do some cheddar, some chutney, all the good things.
So these bread rolls, they are a labour of love, firstly, so we're going to be mixing them by hand, but they do have to first prove. And so what you want to do at home, you want to get a big bowl or a dish or something, put it in your oven with boiling water, and that will create you a little steam chamber, and that will act as a kind of approver for you. If you're already using your oven or something's wrong, you can always put a nice wet or a damp warm tea towel in a warm place for your bread, but the ideal scenario is the oven with your bowl of boiling water. So get that going in now, and then you can grab your bread ingredients. Like Millie said, we've got 2 different types of flour today. In the essence of time, we are going to mix very, very quickly, and then I'll talk about all the different ingredients, our yeast, our salt, our flour, oil and water. But first things first, we have to mix it. That's the hardest part. It takes a lot of gusto, so we have to get started. So for you guys at home, you're going to get your bowl of flour, you're going to get all your ingredients, your teaspoon of salt or half teaspoon of salt in your dry ingredients, your dry yeast in with your dry ingredients, and again for us we've got a nice dash of olive oil straight in, and then the last ingredient is nice warm water. So that's going to kick off the proving process. And these 2 recipes, they are the same, just different types of flour. They're both based on about 1 cup of water. And so we're going to put the 1 cup of water in, and we're going to see how it looks, and we might add a dash more. And for tonight, you are the machine. This is your dough hook. You're going to have if you're right-handed, you're going to have your left hand rotating your bowl and your right hand being a dough hook. Just dig it in and mix it, mix. All you need at this stage is 1 dirty finger. You don't need anything else. Definitely don't stick all 5 fingers in, or 4 fingers and a thumb, because you will make a mess. And what we're wanting to do at this stage is decide how much water we eventually want in. So for me, I'm looking at this. It's looking pretty good. I can see I've still got really big chunks of flour and stuff, so I'm going to add maybe 30, 40 more mils, or up to a 1/4 cup or something like that. So just a big dash, basically of extra water. How's yours
mine's
looking?
very, very dry on the bottom.
Dry? Okay.
Some kind of sticky wet bits, but definitely needs a little bit extra water.
So I'm going to go with a dash. And again, it's not an exact art. When you're at home, you measure with your feelings. So I'm going to put that extra dash in, and I'm going to say that will be enough for me tonight. If you are feeling like you want to challenge yourself, bakers will always say the wetter the better, so you can always go for a little bit extra. But because we're doing bread rolls with these, so we want them to be quite bouncy and round, we don't want them to be too low and sloppy, so we're going to kind of hold back on that water and also make our job a little bit easier as well.
Right, so we'll introduce our special guest tonight, which is Jeffrey. This is your very, very handy bench scraper, so we'll use him throughout the 20 nights all the time for lots and lots of chopping, but it's also great for dividing bread, scooping things out of your bread bowl.
This is called Jeffrey here at Cookery School, but out in the real world, it is just a plastic bench scraper from Bakery Bits. So you've got all your flour is picked up. It's all kind of in a little ball, dome, whatever you've got. And now the hard part, or the muscle part, is kneading. There's quite a few different ways to knead. Either way, you're going to be getting your hands dirty, so don't be shy. I'm going to say try not to just stick your fingers in and leave them there. That is a really good way to get it stuck all over your hands. Anything that you do, you're going to be doing it quickly, and light. So I'll show you a few ways, a few of my favorites, a few other ways to do it. Number one, a nice hefty slap. That is a really good way to get a good amount of tension in your dough and send a few bits of flour flying all over the room. Another way is the good old slap and fold. And you can get a bit more aggressive. And what we're looking to do is turn this sloppy mess into something that creates a really, really tense and tight ball. And it takes a while. It's not going to take you 1 or 2 minutes. It's going to take you more like 4 or 5. You can smear it all over the bench and bring it back together as much as you like. Like I said, this is going to be nice and messy, and I have made mine quite wet.
Sorry about the rattling.
Sorry about the rattling, yeah. But either way, this is at least 4 or 5 minutes on your bench. It's not a magic, quick process. You need to use your muscles. I like the slap and fold or the throwing down on the bench. I think it's the most effective. And it usually, if you start a little bit cleaner, you can just keep the mess to your hands or your fingers. So after a little while, what starts to happen is it stops being so sloppy and so kind of apart, and it starts to kind of bring itself together. Yours is looking really good as well, Millie. Beautiful baby.
Oh gosh, I think I'm nearly there.
What we're looking for is tension or springiness, and that comes about in the way of gluten, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So, but as you're mixing, the best thing that we'll do is it will start to cling to itself and almost clean up your bench for you.
I don't know if I can see that.
A mess and a lot of noise. This is great for if you're...
Upstairs neighbour behaviour.
Yeah, or if you've had a long day and you need something it's going to give you a bit of anger release. This is it.
Ooh, another donation.
Another donation. Okay, I'm feeling pretty good because I can see it's no longer kind of slopping onto the bench. It's no longer like oozing about as it was when it was in my bowl. So the next stage is we're going to test it. And it's really, really hard to test your dough if you've got mucky hands. So you can give your hands a wash, but the other thing that you can do is give them a flour wash, because we're going to use a bit of flour anyway. And so just basically get all the excess bits and bobs off your hands. It's going to go in the dough anyway, so no problems. All right. And now, so for testing your dough, we need to make it into a really tight ball. It's kind of in a tight ball at the moment, but it's much easier with your cleaner hands. So a little bit of flour on your bench.
And you might have noticed at this point we haven't had any flour on our bench apart from just now when we're trying to test for tension. So you don't need flour or oil anything when you're kneading. That's going to start to change your recipe.
And now you flatten it out. It's very common. Don't shred your dough like this. You're using your kind of like 4 fingers just to make it nice and flat. And I've got plenty of flour. It's very annoying if it sticks to the bench at this stage. Going to pinch a little bit, stick it to the center. Rotate it, pinch a little bit, stick it to the center. Pinch a little bit, stick it to the center. Keep on going, because what we're trying to do is we're going to test how tight or how much tension is there. And you've got something that looks a little bit like this, hopefully, if everything's gone to plan. And all we need is that beautiful bounce back. So see how it's springing back? The better it springs back, or the quicker it springs back, the more gluten you've got. And for today, for mixing by hand, that is a really good spring. So in terms of what our next stage is, you need to make yourself your tight little ball. Make sure you've got a good spring. Unfortunately, if it doesn't spring back, you've got a few more minutes work on your hands. And this is going to go into a nice bowl that we've got with a little bit of oil to help you get it out later, and into the oven that you've got your bowl of boiling water. So this is going to go for its first proof. Oh, thank you.
First nap in a nice warm oven. So just remember, if you haven't already, just pop a bowl with some boiling water in there. It's going to make a lovely steamy, hot environment where it can prove nice and fast, because yeast is a fungus and it really thrives at body temp. So you want it at a nice warm temp if you want it to move nice and quick.
And now, even better and probably more horrible to hear is all of this has got yeast on it, which is a fungus, as Millie said, so we don't want to contaminate anything else. So we're going to give our bench a really good scrape. Don't turn on your oven. The oven is off at this point. It's just got that bowl of boiling water or a tray of boiling water, whatever you have. So we are going to give our bench a really good clean. We're going to give our hands a really good clean. And then we're going to let our dough rest. And what will happen is the yeast will start to activate and it will start to prove and grow. All right. While Millie washes her hands, we're just going to talk a little bit about the ingredients. I said I'd explain. We have our I've still got very mucky hands, 4 main ingredients. So we've got our flour, and today we've got the 2 types. We've got a white and we've got our malt house. So the flour is something that is reasonably easy to swap around. The white is very reliable. It's always going to make you a nice dough. We've got the malt house, which is mostly white flour and then filled in with your malted barley and a few ancient grains. That's very British, the granary or the malt house. And then of course you've got a few others. So you've got a wholemeal, which is 100% of the grain, which is very brown. And then we've got our spelt, rye, everything like that. And each flour is a little bit different. So for us tonight, we've got our white and our malt house. But anything else, play with it. You can do 50% white, 50% malt house, 50% white, 50% wholemeal, anything you like. I'm going to give my hands a wash now while Millie does the bench.
So I'm just using some anti-bac, or you could use a little bit of hot soapy water and a cloth. You just want to make sure you're getting rid of any of that yeast, any floury residue and stuff. And then give your hands another quick wash with some antibacterial hand soap. Sorry, friend.
All right, we're back. So we talked about our flour. We've got tonight white and our granary. We need to talk about the other 3 kind of crucial ingredients. And so these breads are called quick breads. That's because we've got quick yeast. So that's our dry or our fast action yeast. What that means is if you do it right, an hour is a push, but if you're doing it as quick as you can with the best results, we're looking for it should be able to be done under 3 hours, even under 2 hours. So your yeast is very quick at proving. So that's what creates bubbles, like that lightness and that fluffiness. So that's our yeast. We've got our salt, which is flavor, of course, a little bit of color on top. And also it helps to kind of regulate the yeast. It looks very ugly without salt and it also tastes awful. And then we've got our water. So the water is kind of the most crucial ingredient, I would say. You've got your good flour, but some water is, the wetter the better. It's going to make it tastier. It's going to make those bubbles more moist, so not so dry. It's also going to help you bake it as well. So water brings everything together, but it also creates gluten. So gluten is like, I think of it like a basket. If you're like this. And the tighter your gluten is, like this, the more bubbles you get trapped inside. If you've got a really loose gluten basket, your yeast bubbles, they just go through the holes. Whereas if you've got a nice tight one, you get more bubbles from your yeast. You get the most out of it. So it's lighter, it's fluffier, it's more delicious. So the more kneading you do, the more gluten you have, the lighter and fluffier your bread is going to be anyway. So that's why we spend so long kneading and we don't just like leave it in the bowl like soup. We make it nice and tight. And then, of course, our first proof. So we've done our hard yards, we've kneaded for what feels like forever, put it in our bowl, and then Millie said we send it off to sleep. But what that actually is your first proof. And anytime you're using the dry yeast like we're using tonight, you need 2 of those. So you're going to do 1 proof in the bowl, which is the stage we're at now, and then you're going to do your second proof after you've shaped it. So it should take, I will say, realistically a minimum of half an hour. We're going to push it a little bit today. We've made it like nice and warm.
Maddie's middle name is Bully.
Yes.
She is going to force her along. So as we were saying, yeast loves warmer temps, sort of below 40 degrees or something. So the hotter you can push it, the more it's going to speed up and be really active. It's like kids in the playground running around.
And there is an extent you can't just, say for example, you can't boil your yeast. It does die at some stage. So we're going to take it quite warm, but not so hot that the yeast dies. So trying not to push it past 40 is a good stage to start.
What's something else that might hurt the yeast?
Freezing it is a good one. If you let it proof for too long, say you forget about it and you leave it in your oven for a long time, your yeast will just eat all its food and then there's no more food for it, so it dies. So very sad, but it's quite, you have to be leaving it to proof for a very long time for that to happen. I'm talking 5-6 hours, so hopefully you don't forget about that. So for now, we've got our first proof, so our bulk proof, it's in the bowl, it's proving. And then now we're going to do a few ingredients that you would put on a sandwich that's lovely. We've got some eggs that we need to boil.
But we have also got one last special guest. So we've shown you white, we've shown you granary. I'll just quickly show you how to make a wholemeal flour one. And we're going to set that to prove as well. So you'll get 3 for the price of 2 today. And then in the meantime, Maddie can do you want to do cucumbers or eggs?
Well, how about you do cucumbers and I can do the wholemeal?
All right, so Maddie's going to do the wholemeal, which is just identical to doing granary or white. It just might take a tiny bit more water than you think, just because wholemeal absorbs a lot more. So while she's doing that, she's going to follow the exact same technique she did earlier. I'm just going to start to thinly slice some cucumbers. And actually, before I even get this on, I'm going to boil some eggs. So while you're mixing.
Egg mayo. Millie's actual least favourite sandwich filling, but I love an egg mayo filling.
So we're going to boil.
I think it's very un-British of you not to like egg mayo.
It's just hard-boiled eggs, that's fine. So we're going to boil our eggs. So these are just like room temp eggs into cold water. So starting from cold, it's just like quite a reliable start. I can put them straight in with my fingers. I'm not dealing with boiling water, steam, cracking eggs. It's just a nice, safe place to start. And I'm going to crank it up now to a boil. Once it comes up to a boil, I'm going to turn it down to a simmer. So it'll look like water that you use to boil pasta. So very vigorous, glassy bubbles. I'll just bring it down until they're small bubbles breaking the surface for about 8 minutes.
And I'll just be here making a mess, I guess.
Yes.
So I'm doing the exact same process as I did with the other two, or well, one from Millie, one from me, which is all your dry ingredients. So your flour of choice, which we've got wholemeal now, our third flour, your yeast, dry yeast, your salts, your oil, and then water, starting with a cup. In terms of your flours, I said everything's a little bit different. Wholemeal always takes a little bit more water because those outside bits of the grain, the husk, which is why it's kind of that darker brown, it's also a bit more gritty. They soak up a bit more water. So it can always take a little bit more water than, say, your white or your granary. So you can be a bit more generous with your water. And as well, it's going to soak up the water over time.
That's fine.
I'm just going to continue mixing and I'm going to get my best friend Jeffrey out. So in terms of the water amount...
You can use my dust, Jeffrey.
Oh, thanks. In terms of the water amount for the wholemeal, I know that this is going to be soaked up pretty happily, but for sure I'm going to make a mess on my bench. So the upside is your wholemeal doesn't need anywhere near as much work. Just because it's a bit more sloppy, it's always going to be lighter, but it's never going to get as bouncy as your other breads. So this one, for me, the smearing works best. Because you can see already, even though it's just been sitting for what, like 30 seconds, it's already soaked up so much more water than the rest of the breads. And the wholemeal, it's never going to get as bouncy as your white or your granary, but it's always super, super delicious, really moist, and very filling as well. So your wholemeal is like eating, I don't know, it's like eating oats. So it's got a longer burning energy. So, and it's got a beautiful flavour to it as well. If you're buying really nice flour, like we do from Shipton Mill, it's got a beautiful nutty flavour. It's got a bit more texture. And again, it is more moist because we've put all that extra water in. And you don't have to mix it anywhere near as much, because it will just, it struggles to get that super bounciness from the rest of them. It's always going to be a little bit more dense, but it does have that lovely, lovely flavour, which we love.
So our eggs are coming up to a simmer. So I'll just move it to the back here. You can see it's going on a little easier. So I've just got barely any bubbles breaking on the bottom of the surface. I'm just going to wait for it to come up to a full rolling boil, and then I'll turn it down to its simmer.
And while you're doing that, I'm just going to make a few more donations to the floor gods. I've lost a little bit of my dough on the floor, but it still looks good. And so in terms of what we're looking for the tension, doing the same thing, going to get my flour, get any excess bits off my hands, and then test for that nice bounce while Millie takes care of her cucumber.
Sure, and the other thing is, just because I've gone through this at home myself, if you haven't made bread for a while and you have yeast already at home, you might want to just check that it's working. It's possible that it has died in the meantime. It has a shelf life of about 6 months, so just keep in mind. You can check it by putting in a bowl of warm water with a pinch of sugar. It'll eat the sugar if it's alive and get foamy and bubbly on the top. And if you can't see that, it's probably dead, so maybe just buy another packet. Because I've done that before. It was a horrible, horrible moment.
Everyone's been there.
So slicing cucumbers, I'm going to do my claw. So looking like this without anything underneath, but I'll just wait till Maddie's finished with her bread and then I'll show you.
I'm just making a nice little mess here. Like I said, it's never going to be as bouncy as your white, but it's got a nice bounce to it, to be honest. That's not bad at all. So we're going to do the exact same thing. We've got our bowl with our flour inside, with our oil inside, and it's going into that nice hot oven.
Cool.
Thank you, ma'am. And I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to give my hands a really good wash. Millie's got nice clean hands, so she's going to be my hands for me. Clean the bench, clean my hands, and then I'll help.
Gosh, these are on the move already, actually. I'll take one out so I can show you what's going on here. So yeast at its happy and alive will start to push out carbon dioxide as it feeds on all the sugars. So I can see this is already beginning to move. I'm going to pop this back in the oven so it can just continue to do its proving. And now my eggs come up to the boil. I'm just going to turn it down to a simmer. So from very high to medium high. You should still see small bubbles breaking the surface, but it won't be quite as powerful as before. And now it's come up to the boil. I'll set my timer for 8 minutes. Getting a little tight in here? No.
Just leave it over.
All right. So slicing cucumbers, I'm going to have my hands in the claw. That just means that my nails are really, really well tucked under and they are nowhere near my knife. I'm going to go for very, very thin slices for this. We're going to salt them to season them and also to draw out the water. If I do them too thick, they're just going to be like a little too hard and crunchy and they won't really soften in the time that we need them to. So I'm going to go take my time a little bit, making sure I can get them as thin as possible. If you have got a very scary mandolin at home, that is a good thing to use these for. But otherwise, a knife and a little bit of patience will do the job just fine.
Such thin slices. I'd never be able to do that.
So something else you can do at this point is to grab a pack of butter from the fridge if you like butter. We are big fans, but we are going to leave ours on the side just to soften for later on, because putting cold butter on fresh bread is often a bit of a nightmare. It tends to just tear up your bread. So get your butter softening now.
And while Millie chops her cucumber, I'm going to do the exact same with the tomato. It's got an identical amount of water, if not more. So we're going to slice it very thin. We're going to dry it out and put a good pinch of salt as well to draw out the excess water.
So I'm just spreading all of these pieces out, leaving a little bit of room for Maddie's cucumber. I'm going to put salt on the top, and then I'm also going to use another piece of kitchen rolls just so, and forget about it.
Yeah,
another piece of kitchen roll just to absorb any stuff coming out from the top as well.
Beautiful. If you're making these bread at home, these rolls at home, they can take a little bit more time than what we're going to give them today at every single stage. So your proving stage, your mixing stage, your second prove, your bake, everything like that. We're showing you that it can be done in an hour, but for your best, so everything should be doubling in size. you can always go for a little bit more time. So don't be afraid to leave your bowl in the proving oven for a little bit longer or everything like that. At every stage I'll tell you when you can give it a little bit more time. As Millie said, we're bullying today. We're being a bit mean to our bread. We're going to push it through all the stages quite quickly just to show you that it can be done in an hour and you still get beautiful fresh bread at the end as well.
So I've just done a sort of generous but really, really even sprinkle of salt. It's not nice to bite into a big piece of salt crystals or something. So a nice fine sea salt from high. It's not just to look fancy when I'm doing it, it's so I can get a really, really even distribution of salt and not just one big clump in one place.
Lovely, and then I'm going to get a few more of our other beautiful ingredients. So I think your sandwiches are always best kept simple. We've got some beautiful aged cheddar here that has a classic pairing with some chutney that we've made, but I think cheese is kind of an all-rounder. Everyone loves cheese on a sandwich, but it is nice if you can get it quite nice and thin, I think. Like, you can layer it up, but the thinner the better at this stage.
I think a cheese sandwich also sits quite well, so it's not going to release lots of water. So partly why we are draining and salting our cucumbers is so they're not really wet and making our sandwiches soggy. So, for example, we're going to use a little bit of butter as like our waterproofing.
I like that. And I'm going to use a lot of butter for waterproofing.
Yes, can you tell I've been doing lots of DIY?
Yeah.
So lots of butter, but also just giving yourself a helping hand, seasoning them, but also to draw the water out is a really important step. And in the first place, just using drier fillings. So we're draining our tomatoes, but cheddar has not very much water because through the aging process, it loses a lot of that. We're not using mozzarella, for example, which is a very wet kind of fresh cheese.
Yeah, so these sandwiches, we're doing them fresh, which is lovely, but they also sit really well overnight. The wetter ones, maybe not so, but like a cheese and chutney sandwich the next day is absolutely awesome. And I will say that egg mayo the next day is really good.
You're sick.
You don't like it?
No. So 10 years later, still slicing my cucumbers, but I think it's worth doing them properly.
And I've got plenty of cheese because it's one of my favourite things.
Right. Nearly there.
Now is a great time. I know that you're proving your bread in your oven, but if you want your oven to heat up, you may have to take it out a little bit early to turn it on. Where's my bowl? All right, I think this is plenty of cheese for 2 people, but we can always cut up more later. I've got some nice thin slices of cheese. We've got our chutney to go. Not too much more to go. We're going to start shaping our bread very soon. I know I said they can always take a little bit more time at every single stage, but we're going to show you the shaping process just so you have an idea. And it is really nice because we're going to make about 10 bread rolls, so hopefully by the 10th one you've really, really nailed it. But again, this could be up to 20 minutes more than what we're doing. We're going to shape it at the early stages, so it can always take more. It should double in size on the first stage, so hopefully that will be a good guide for you.
All right, I'm done. I'm done.
Finally done slicing your cucumber.
Done. Right, one last layer of salt. I'm going to do another little bit of kitchen roll, and that is our sandwich done.
And I'm going to do a little shuffle.
A little swapsy. And to be honest, even just from a very, very brief sit and pause, with that salt on, they're already beginning to withdraw a lot of water. So just going to keep checking on these as they go. And our eggs have only got 2 minutes left on the timer as well.
So it's back to bread. So this one has been sitting there, I actually don't know the exact time, probably about 15 minutes. We bullied it, it's pretty warm. Ideal scenario, you've got ages, you've got plenty of time, you're doing a few other things about the kitchen. Ideal scenario, this has grown more than this, so double in size is what they say. I'm happy because I can feel that it's lightened, it's got a few bubbles inside, but also there's lots of bubbles on the bottom starting to form as well. So again, it could always take more time. You're wanting it to double in size, but I'm going to show you the shaping process so you know what you're doing. When yours gets ready, push out. I know the bubbles are there. First bubbles are good, second bubbles are better. So the yeast has created some bubbles, which are nice, but they're not the best ones. The best bubbles are the second time around. I said we'd prove twice. Your first proof was in the bowl, and the second proof is after you've shaped it. So for us, we're doing bread rolls tonight. So we're going to do one recipe. You can have 8 monster bread rolls like this. You can have 10 slightly smaller, or you can have 12 kind of little baby dinner rolls. We're going to do 10. I think 8 is a little bit big. 12 is a little bit small for a sandwich, so we're going to go a nice risky 10. You can see I've flattened it out, and I'm going to create, for me, something that I can cut 10 from. I say easily. Something that I can cut 10 from, hopefully. So I've got 2 little sausages, and I have to cut them both into 5.
My favourite number.
Yeah, 10 is one of the hardest numbers to cut into.
In the meantime, my eggs have been boiling for 8 minutes, so they should be hard boiled. I'm just going to drain all the water out and then run them under cold water so they don't keep cooking and they can cool down a touch before we peel them and grate them.
She's taking care of the eggs and she doesn't even like them. They are easiest to peel when they're warm as well. So if you can keep that in your mind, don't let them go fully cold. A little bit warm is the easier to peel. And freshly boiled. For your numbers, I've got 10. They look mostly the same. If you've got a monster, like something that is twice the size of another one, just share your dough about, make sure they're all roughly the same, either in weight or in size or what they look like. But these are yours, so you don't have to have them all exactly the same. They just have to be resembling each other. You want them all to prove and bake roughly at the same time. So I've got 10 roughly even pieces, and now we start to shape. So use flour as you need it. Don't just absolutely cover them in flour because you want the dough to still be able to stick to itself. So for us, I've got 10 good ones. Millie's going to help me with this one, and then we'll do the wholemeal after. I'm going to make her do every single one except for one. No. So here, if you need a little bit of flour, do use it. Just don't go nuts. I usually just dip my hands in the flour and I find that's enough. A little bit on your bench. And we're doing something similar to when we were testing for the tension. So flattening it out, not shredding it. We're pinching it and sticking it to the center. Rotate. Pinching it, pulling it out a little bit, sticking it to the center. Around and around we go. Now, there's 2 ways to do this. That's called your pre-shape, or just kind of making them all a bit regular.
I'm just sort of speeding around.
Millie's just doing the fast way. So, and then there's the baker's way, which I'll show you. So from here, this is a rough shape. I've picked it up, I've used a little bit of flour as I need it, pushed it out, pull, and making what looks like a little bit of a dumpling. And all that does is gives you a nice, roughly smooth surface on the top, and all the ugly bits are sealed underneath. So this is going to be the top of my buns, but these are a bit rough. So now we do the final shape and make them absolutely perfect. A few ways to do it. Number 1, you've got 2 kind of parallel hands parallel to the bench, and you're going to almost undercut it. But what you're actually aiming to do is stretch, say like the top half, all the way underneath. So you imagine you're continuously tucking everything underneath, and what that's doing is making it really nice and tight and really nice and round. So this one's flat, it hasn't had its second shape. This one's really nice and round. The other way, which I'm sure if you watch Instagram as much as I do, is I'm sure you've seen some bakers doing this about. You've got to get rid of all your excess flour, because we don't want it to be sliding on the bench. We want it to be smearing and kind of sticking to the bench, and you can be pretty rough with this. So still keeping in mind you want your top, and your bottom. But I'm almost bringing it towards myself and then pushing it away, just in a bit of a circular motion. This is a great time to practice this. I mean, you've got 10 to go. You get closer, you can see they've both got a good amount of tension. These are all the ones that have had that second kind of shape, and they look lovely. The more round this is, the more bubbles you're going to get inside. That's kind of going back to that basket of the gluten. So I've got 3 absolute beautiful babies. Millie's got a lovely one there.
So I'm going to just dip these in a little bit of water. This is my glue for my lovely seedy topping. And then you just end up with something that looks a bit like this. I'm going to pop these on a tray in a sort of alternating pattern. I'll show you exactly what I mean by that in a sec.
And this is just for beauty. If you don't have these at home, you don't have to use them. But like sesame seeds, poppy seeds, you've got some ancient grains. This is just a nice little 5-seed blend. But you can use this. You don't have to. You can just pop your bread rolls straight on, so long as you always have your top on your top and that bit that you've squeezed together, or all your ugly bits, are on the bottom. These are pretty good. And we're going to see how our wholemeal's going.
So however they go onto the tray is how they're going to come out. So take your time making sure they're a little bit beautiful, because they're not going to get prettier.
They will get more pretty when they prove.
But like if they really start looking rough.
So we have done so far for this bread, we've done our mix, we've done our first proof or our bulk proof, which is in that bowl. So double in size at that stage. We knocked out all the bubbles and then we shaped it. So, but it doesn't have to be bread rolls. If you could put it all into a loaf tin or something like that. But the second time you prove it is in your shape. So for us tonight, we're doing bread rolls, but it needs to prove again before it goes in the oven. So it needs to double in size again before it goes in the oven. So for us,
alternating style.
Alternating, yeah. You can see Millie's gone 3 and then 2 and then 3 and then 2. That will help them prove lovely, but also bake, because the oven heat will go around them. If you have them like this, they will certainly touch when they grow. So these ones are going to get bigger when they prove and also bigger when they bake. So give them a good amount of space, let them grow.
So these are going to go into our prover, or, ooh, yes, just for you.
Beautiful. And now we've got our second, which is our wholemeal. So that was our granary or our malt house, which is that beautiful kind of, it's a light white mix with the malted barley inside. And now we've got our wholemeal dough. So this one, again, it hasn't had too long. It can always take more to prove, up to double in size. But we're going to go ahead and practice our shaping again anyway, so that you guys can do the same at home. If you see, I flip it out, get it out of my bowl, and I have made this wet again. I always say don't make it too wet.
Malt house,
yeah.
or?
Yeah, as wet as the malt house. And I'm doing that same thing. I'm flattening it out. It should have bubbles. I'm going to fold it over and divide it into 10. And because I've made it nice and wet, I'm going to use a little bit of extra flour. I've got plenty of flour for this one because I'm sorry, Millie, I've made this really wet. This is going to be sloppy as heck. So we're going to do 10 again, knowing that these ones are, they're wholemeal. They've got plenty of the husk inside. They've got a bit longer lasting. These really do fill you up, I will say, in the end. We're going for, I did it, yeah, good. 10 equal-ish pieces. I can see I've got one that's massive and one that's really small, so I'm going to donate a little bit. And now's the time. We get to practice again. Shaping, shaping, shaping. So if you've done 10 already, send us some photos of what they look like. We'd love to see it. If you need some more practice, you're still going on your original 10 or you're just doing one tonight, now's the time. So, same process. I still always do a pre-shape. This is the slower version when you tap it out like this and you pull it up and bring it around and make yourself a little dumpling. That's a very, very rough and kind of on the slower side of your pre-shape. The other thing that you can do is just kind of tuck everything underneath. Either way, you really do want to be shaping it twice because you can see this is pretty rough and that second time just makes it even more beautiful. But you can practice all these different ways. There's so many different ways to shape bread. Everyone has their own way to do it. You can even do a very, very rough version of that baker's roll that I showed you, smearing it on the counter. They're all good. Whatever tickles your fancy. Picks your fancy, tickles your fancy. Millie's, we're both thinking, wow, Maddie, why did you put so much water in this bread? But I will say,
It'll be good.
If you feel like it, a little bit of excess water does make them much nicer. So what happens is they create a really, really thin crust because they've got all that water and they cook a lot quicker because it's easier for the oven to create steam because of all the excess water. So they cook quicker, they have a thinner crust, they don't dry out too much. So if you're willing to challenge yourself, go a little bit of extra water. It's going to be more delicious. It's never going to be worse. It's just a little bit stickier to handle on the bench. So that second shape you can do any type of way. You can do that undercut that I did a few times. You can do the baker's roll. You can just do a continuous tuck. So long as you're keeping the top on the top and the bottom on the bottom, everything is good. And I've got a very small one. Did a bad job of dividing. There we go.
I'll steal a little one.
Yeah, Millie's going to
chunk.
donate to the baby that I've just done.
Robin.
And again, you don't need to do this as quickly as we're doing it. Practice. Practice your shaping. It's a really good way to get good, particularly if you want to go from your undercut one, which is kind of the easier version, into that classic baker's roll when you're smearing it on the bench. So long as you've always got that nice smooth top and then everything tucked underneath on the bottom, it's all good.
And believe it or not, you weren't born knowing how to do this. Even Maddie had to spend lots of time learning how to do this.
Practice. We talked about doing this en masse. So we're making 12. That's a lot. 10. That's a lot. I don't know how many people you're feeding. If you want to freeze these after they're baked, freeze them when they're fresh, and they are fantastic when you reheat them. You can put them in a hot oven for 5 minutes, and it's like they're fresh. You wouldn't know the difference. So make 30 and then freeze half of them and use them at a later date.
All right, so once again, we're going to give our hands a very, very good wash. Get rid of all this stuff off the bench. After you. So with our boiled eggs, we're going to start peeling them once I've washed my hands, sanitized the bench and stuff, but you can make extra. They will keep in the fridge for a couple of days pretty well, so it's nice to make half a dozen, even a dozen, just keep them in there for a nice, quick, inexpensive, high-protein snack. If I can.
I'm coming.
Oh, you're coming.
Yes, bread, it can be a very messy and longer process. So we're just sanitizing our bench and washing our hands because, as we said earlier, the yeast is a fungus, so it can grow. And that means, yes, it's going to grow in your bread, but it can also grow on your cuticles, it can grow on you. So it's still got a life of its own. It thrives at body temperature. So we're making sure that there's no trace left, that we're not going to take that contaminant home with us. It's not very nice to take it home with you at the end of the day. Not the friend you want to take home.
All right.
I'll give it a scout again. Do you want to do the eggs?
Eggs, yeah.
I'm forcing Millie to do her least favourite thing again.
All right, so if your oven is a little bit slow to heat up, pop it on now. So we're going to go on to 200 to 220 on the higher side, just so we can get that lovely brown, crisp crust. Brilliant. All right, eggs. My least favourite thing, as Maddie was saying. I do like soft-boiled eggs, I just have a thing against hard-boiled ones, that's all. So I just like to crack it, top and bottom, a couple of cracks on the side. This is a little bit messy, my way of doing it, but gets the job done. And I'll give it like a gentle roll. And I like to keep the water that I cracked it in on hand, just so I can rinse off those bits of shell. Nothing worse than getting a little bit of extra shell in your lovely smooth egg mayo.
Do you want me to help you, or do you want me to just watch?
You can chop some spring onions. I'm good.
Oh, okay.
And we'll just show you how our white bread is doing that we made earlier. And this is actually at the sort of proper stage where it should be in terms of rising. Can you just show them the way? So if you let your bread have the proper amount of time to rise, it should look like this.
If you can see, our bowls are kind of a perfect guide. That's why we use the exact same bowl every time. This has risen almost double in size. I know it's close when it's getting to touch the top of the plate. And you will notice we're just using plates on top. It doesn't need cling wrap or anything like that. A container that matches, a plate on top of your bowl,
shower
a tea
cap.
towel on top of your bowl, a shower cap, anything you got. But you can see it's risen a lot, and it's even got my favourite thing,
The
a
jiggle.
So that jiggle tells me that there is air all the way through, and I'm going to very gently lift it up, and you can see there's bubbles all underneath as well. So that one is looking really good and can even take more time. So double in size is you might have a different style bowl, or you might have a slightly different container. Just double in whatever size you've got. So these ones are good to go in 5-10 minutes as well. We'll see how we go for timing in terms of shaping. So I'm going to set it aside, but that is what you're looking for your first proof. So this is your first proof or your bulk proof. I think, what else do they call it? Bulk ferment. Every time you use quick yeast, that dry yeast, you have to prove it twice. Once in the bowl and then once in your shape. For today, bread rolls.
So something I also like to use when I'm peeling eggs is just like a spoon or a teaspoon. It's quite a good way to just like come up into the membrane and scoop it all out in one fell swoop.
I'm chopping the egg's best partner, which is spring onions or chives. Just something a little bit oniony in your mix without actually cooking onions or using real onions. They have a great kind of spice to them. Other things you can put inside, we've got some lovely house-made pasteurized mayo. We've got some Tabasco. What else? We've got some ketchup.
But we're just going to keep ours simple today. We're just going to do just some eggs and nice mayo, a little bit of salt and pepper. Yeah, you can do lots of other mixins if you want.
Anything you like. Salt, pepper, but usually either chives or spring onions. And you could do some paprika, whatever you like.
So I'm just using like a really coarse setting on a grater just to quickly chop up my eggs. You could use a knife, you could mash it with a fork, whatever you have on hand. We just want to make these into slightly smaller pieces. So now they've cooled down, the yolk is not going to burn my hands. So ideally not working with super hot eggs. These are perfect temp now.
And I'm going to cut these spring onions actually as small as I can go. We want the flavour to kind of sit, and it is a little bit nice if you can let it sit, just to let your mayo and your eggs soak up the flavour a little bit more.
And something nice about these eggs, we haven't boiled them for so long that they turn green on the outside. So that 8 minutes just gives you a nice sort of dry centre that's fully cooked through, but definitely not green or smelling too eggy.
Or grey.
Or grey.
Worse.
Even worse, so yeah. Just nice golden yolk, no off colours or smells. And that comes from over-boiling your eggs. They're still edible, just not quite as nice.
As we said, if you have a slow oven, we've got our oven turned on to a nice high heat. So if you didn't before, you can always pop your oven onto a nice high heat. Now we're talking anything over 200, 215, 220.
While your oven's heating up, take your bread out, just in case you are using it as a prover. I just suddenly had a bit of a moment where I thought I'd left the bread in there, but I moved them both up to the top. Oh, good.
Usually once your bread is a little bit warm, your dough, it moves very quickly. I think a lot of people get really scared when they're proving the first time. So you've mixed your dough and you set it aside and you freak out because you're like, oh my gosh, it's not growing, the yeast is dead or something like that. But then all of a sudden when the yeast is at its best temperature, which is room temperature up to body temperature, it just goes like that. So your dough can move really quickly, it just needs to get to the right temperature, which as we said is a body temperature or a bit less.
All right, we are there. I won't ever use the tips of my fingers when I'm grating things, to be honest. I much prefer to use my palm. It's much softer, so it tends to not get like caught up in your grater blades. So I'll just go like that until I get to the end.
And I've got some nice finely chopped spring onions. We want it a bit small, just to like distribute it quite evenly throughout eggies. And to be honest, it's hard to have too much. That's a good amount for me, if you're asking. And now, yeah, salt, pepper, and like I said, we've got some really nice homemade mayo. There's plenty about. Try and find one with eggs inside. So we make this here. It is absolutely delicious. And it's good. We're going to try and balance it. All mayos are very fatty. So we're going to try and balance it out with like a pinch of salt. I said I've got some Tabasco as well. So trying to balance out the fattiness of the eggs and the mayo.
We're just going to keep ours simple today though. So yeah, a little bit of salt. You can use pepper as well if you want to. And I'm going to make Maddie taste this because I'm just not a big fan of hard-boiled eggs. And actually, thinking about it now, this has got a tiny bit of vinegar in it. It's also got a little bit of mustard powder. It's got some salt. So it shouldn't need a huge amount of seasoning. We're going to go for about a teaspoon, a pinch per egg.
And we're going to go a good amount of mayo. Right?
I'm just going to turn this over to you.
That's the best bit about it. Yes. We're good.
So what kind of consistency do you want?
Sloppy. Yeah, you want it to be reasonably firm. In terms of firmness, that is still, it's a bit dry, so I'm going to pop a little bit more in, but it is getting close to the consistency that we want.
Another tablespoon?
One more. In terms of consistency, I will say that's pretty good. You want it to be, you don't want it like oozing out of your bread. That's the worst. So you want it to have a bit of firmness to it. And so now we can go in with our other bits and bobs. So that pinch of salt we've got. No Tabasco, okay. Anything you like inside.
For you.
Oh, I'm tasting.
I'm definitely not tasting. Let's see how these are doing. Oh, not too far off.
Shocker, because it is quite fatty with the mayo, I'm going to put a pinch more salt in.
Oh, these are not too far off. So they're beginning to do that sort of slight jiggle that we want. If I press it very gently, it's actually starting to bounce back. It's leaving the smallest indentation on the side, but it is very, very close. So as soon as my oven is hot, I think we'll be ready to put these in. They will continue proving, and at this point, they're going to start moving nice and fast. So I'm going to put this back into my proving oven, but it's only going to need another minute or two after that.
And I did say each time, remember, it can always take a little bit longer. We're looking to double in size. So we're rushing them, or we're pushing them a little bit more today because we're fitting it in an hour, which is really cool and very impressive. If you're doing the same at home, good job. But if not, they can always take a little bit longer in the bowl, a little bit longer just before you pop them in the oven. But a nice hot oven is what you want. You don't want to be cooking your bread rolls at 160 because they don't grow very much and they just dry all the way through. So we want like a nice hot oven for them to go woof in the oven. Yeah. That last pinch of salt has done the job. So we've got pretty much all our fillings ready to go. We've got our oven on to a nice high temperature. We're going to start baking, I think. Let's have a look at these.
If any of this has seemed a little bit tricky or you feel like you aren't fully clear on bread, we're making it again on Friday for our Friday night special, doing delicious pizza. So we will recap all this once more as well.
And there's a few other sessions as well that we do bread. We do flatbreads. We're doing burger buns at some point. So we'll do bread quite a few times in quite a few different shapes as well. Bread rolls are great, but they're not the only shape of bread that you can make. So you can make 1,000 other things. So we are going to kind of put this bread in no matter what. Remembering, so what it looks like, or what we want is they're nice and round, which is good. They've got a bit of bounce to them. They've got a little bit of a jiggle, which is nice. They can always take a little bit longer. For me, I would give these, if I had all the hours in the world, I'd give them another 10 or 15 minutes for sure. But these feel really nice. You can see the wholemeal is a little bit flatter. That's because it's got all the extra water in it, which is lovely. So these are going to go in for 10 to 15 minutes, depending on your oven and how hot it is.
Ooh, spicy. Right.
Come here.
So trying to give them as much room as I can between the trays, just so the heat can just circulate very, very evenly in there, which is ideal. So we can have a little look at our fillings, do a quick recap.
So what have we done from start to finish so far? We have done 3 different types of flours today, all the same recipe and all the same systems. Everything is the exact same. So we've had our white, we've had our granary, which is like that malt house. It's very British, I see it everywhere. A little bit of malted barley, a few ancient grains, very fancy. So a little bit sweeter, a little bit on the molassesy side. And then we've got our third, so our wholemeal. So the white flour is your inside. If you imagine a wheat grain, your white flour is the inside third. So it's not very much of the grain. And then your wholemeal is your brown flour, which is all of it. So all 3 parts of the grain. That's why it's got that really like husky, it's really like crispy, it's got chunks in it. They're all lovely. Like it just depends on what you want. You know, your white is very light and bouncy, your wholemeal is very dense and flavoursome. But either way, all 3 flours have the exact same recipe. Your pound of flour, 1/4 cup of oil, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of yeast, and that cup of water is subjective. So it can be, I would say, you start with your cup of water and then you can move up as you're a bit more comfortable with your bread. So if you want to challenge yourself, a little bit more water is always going to make it that tiny bit better, I think. So our wholemeal today had lots of water, accidentally on my part. But for me, that's going to make it a nicer bread. So if you're challenging yourself, this is maybe the 3rd or the 4th time you're doing your bread, go for a little bit more water. Don't go an extra full cup, but you know, little by little, you can always add water as you need it. You don't need to go the whole hog the first go. And then we've mixed it in our bowl. We said, okay, the water's good. We had a cup or a cup and a quarter or something like that. And then of course, you knead for forever until your arms are sore and you've got that really nice, it's like a bouncy, bouncy ball. And we've got the test. So we rolled it into that nice little ball. We pressed it, it bounced back, we're happy. That's glutinous. And then of course, prove number 1 out of 2. Just like this. It's growing, it's got lots of bubbles. This one's almost ready to go actually. So, my favorite, it's touching the plate. That for me always means that it's ready to go. It can take minimum half an hour, I would say, is like a pretty good sign. It depends on how warm your water is or how warm your oven is at the time when you put that bowl of boiling water in. It can take minimum half an hour, but it could take up to an hour depending on how cold it is.
Yeah,
or
middle
how
of
cold
winter,
your
if
water
you're in
is.
a British house,
Yeah.
probably take quite a while.
So always you're looking for it to double in size no matter where it is, no matter how much dough you've got, no matter how. And then once you've got that double in size, that's when you shape it. So bread rolls, a loaf, feeling fancy. Baguette, focaccia, pizza, flatbreads. We'll go through all of these as well on other nights. So tonight we're doing bread rolls, and I hope you got a good practice in shaping. We did so many, so they should be, by the end, you should have these like beautiful tight bread rolls. And then of course, you've proved it once, and once you've shaped it, you have to prove it a second time. Bread is a labor of love. A labor of love. That's why I always say, if you're making bread, you may as well make heaps, because you have to do the shaping, the proving, everything like that, no matter what. So we've got our bread here. We've got our bread in the oven. I will say, I'm not sure if you've noticed, all of these fillings are quite cold. So we're not going to assemble them right now. We're going to take our bread out of the oven. We're going to have a look at it. But we're going to let it cool down before we put any of our fillings in. But what does go in a nice hot roll is a good amount of butter. There is nothing better than bread that you've made yourself at home, fresh out of the oven, with about a half cup of butter on it. There is nothing better.
When I first met Maddie, I saw her buttering a loaf of, what was it? It was a sandwich or something. And I thought she had cheese on it because it left bite marks in it.
So I think I'll give our bread 2 more minutes just before we take it out. It's a little bit on the fragile side. In terms of baking, for something small, like what we've got, so bread rolls, anything like that, or thin or small in some way, if it's golden on the top and golden underneath, it's going to be pretty close. If you're really worried, if you're doing something bigger, like a big cob loaf or a tin loaf or something like that, you need to be able to tap it and have it sound hollow. And also it should be light. So you should have cooked the water out, so it should be feeling lighter than when it went in, because you've evaporated a lot of the water outside. So there are a few things to look for, but I would say if you're doing anything that's big like a loaf, it should be a minimum 45 minutes to 50 minutes before you even think about it being cooked. So don't pop it in for 20 minutes and say, oh, it's golden on top, I think it's ready. It needs to cook to the center. But your bread rolls, 10 to 15 minutes at a nice high heat, they are absolutely done. And I think I mentioned about freezing them when they're fresh.
Yes, and actually in a couple of our sessions that we're going to be doing, we will be showing you how to bread things. So using stale bread is a wonderful way of making stuff delicious and crispy. Yes. So we'll use breadcrumbs along our 20-day journey. So if you do have stale bread that you haven't frozen in time, you can grate it on a coarse box grater, or even put it in a Magimix if you have one, any kind of blender, and make lovely breadcrumb.
We use it inside the veggie meatballs. You can cook it on
meatballs.
top. Yeah, on top of things to make it crispy. There's 1,000 ways. But if you want to keep them fresh, you have to freeze them on the day that you make them. So we don't use any preservatives or anything like that. So they're going to be best today. Tomorrow they'll be okay. So if you want to freeze them, definitely do it on the day that you bake them, after they've cooled.
Yeah, bread is one of the most wasted products in the UK, so we hate food waste. So either freeze them, as Maddie was saying, or make them into breadcrumbs. You can cut them into little small cubes, have delicious croutons if you toast in a bit of olive oil, some garlic.
Yum.
You'll learn how to make
bread
soups.
and butter pudding. There's so many things.
Whoa, look at them. Yeah, on their way.
They're not bad for an hour of baking, and I did say it was a rush job. These are looking pretty lovely. So we have a little bit of colour. So this one's got a light golden brown here, a light golden brown here. I can feel they're very hot, by the way. They're a little bit squishy, so they're a little bit soft on the outside, so they haven't kind of created that full crust. If I look on the bottom, it's got no colour either. So we want like a nice golden on top, golden on the bottom. For me, depending how high your oven is, these ones only need 3 or 4 more minutes. They're very, very close. They've got a skin. We're going to pop them back in just for a touch, and we'll check our wholemeal as well.
I'm just going to rotate them as well, just so they go in a different direction than they enter the oven. And say wholemeal?
Yeah, wholemeal. Let's have a look.
Let's have a look. So once again, our ovens are uneven, as are everyone's, so they're much browner towards the front of our rows, but that's fine. We'll just rotate them when they go back in.
So I discussed what to look for when they're ready. Firstly, if you've got your buns exploding like this, They just need a little bit more time proving before you put them in the oven. I did say that, like we're rushing them, we're bullying them, but they're still going to be lovely, no problems. If you're testing for the cooked, so golden, of course, has to be golden on the bottom, but if it's something bigger, you want to be tapping it and having it sound hollow. To me, this sounds thick. It sounds like it's heavy, so it still feels like it's full of raw dough. So it sounds very, very full of raw dough and not hollow at all. So again, these will take even a little bit longer maybe, so maybe another 5 minutes for these, that really nice high temperature. Don't be put off by this. I think I talk about underproving dough a lot.
It's much better
and overproving, yeah. So we
Sorry.
talked about your yeast. It needs 2 proofs. I'm going to pop these back in the oven just for a tick. And I did say you can't leave your dough lying around for hours and hours and hours. What happens if you leave your dough and your yeast is just making bubbles and bubbles and bubbles and bubbles and bubbles? Your yeast dies, and that is not very fun. So in your dough, if you are worried, always, for me, I will always go on a little bit under or the perfect proof, because if you let it go for too long, you get these really big bubbles, and the big bubbles don't taste very nice. But also what's happened is your yeast has eaten all the food, so all the sugars in the flour, so also your bread doesn't taste very nice because it's got no sugar left in it. So
and it's not brown because it's got no sugar.
This is quick bread. So it shouldn't be left for 50 hours. It shouldn't be left for 10 hours. You should be able to do it kind of within 3 hours very, very comfortably, 2 hours at a push, and 1 hour, as you've seen today, if you are absolutely bullying your bread, you're using very, very warm water and stuff. So
the meanest, Maddie.
Exactly, I'm a bread bully.
So thank you so much for joining us for yet another night at Cookery School. Here are some of our fillings that we have prepared tonight. So we've got our, well, lurking underneath, I've got some drained salted tomatoes, thank you. Cucumber as well, nice and thinly sliced.
Very beautifully sliced, Millie.
And as you let them sit, they get a little bit floppier, which just means you're not going to have like a really, really big, weird crunch in your sandwich. Egg mayo that Maddie's made with some lovely homemade mayo.
Cheese and chutney, a classic pairing. That is like one of the best for me.
Yeah.
Not as good as egg mayo, but one of the best. And always, when you are making sandwiches, particularly if you want them to last a little bit longer, you make a seal of butter. So you've got your bread and you've got butter on the inside, and what that will do is kind of lock in your ingredients and make sure that your bread doesn't soak up any excess water, even from your egg mayo. Even if you've drained them, you don't want soggy bread. So you can make some for dinner and then keep the leftovers for lunch tomorrow. They last really long, and particularly the bread is lovely. Yeah. Especially when you've made it yourself, way better.
Do you think those granary rolls are ready, or do you think they still need another 2?
I think they're ready. They've been bullied all night. Why not bully them a little bit longer? Oh yeah, not too bad. So again,
dinner in an hour.
Dinner in an hour, yeah. And breakfast for the next day and lunch for the next day. Lunch boxes. Okay, we've got...
Hot, hot, hot?
Yeah, it's so hot. We've got... Okay, that is the golden colour I was looking for. That was only just on a few of them the time before. It's golden on the bottom.
Can you tap it? I know they're hot.
That hollow sound is what you're looking for. So for me, these are great. And even better, if you are freezing them, freeze them on the paler side, because if you take them out and pop them in a really hot oven, I promise you nobody will be able to tell that they were in the freezer. That's the best part about it. If you pop them in nice and pale, put them in a nice hot oven on the other side of the freezer, nobody will tell.
It's what most supermarkets and industrial bakers do. So you've just joined us for another night. This is night 3. So thank you so much. Please, please, please tag us on Instagram at Cookery School in London.
Your bread rolls.
Hashtag Cook for Victory. We'd love to see all your creations. And it's just been like another amazing night. We are now going to dig into a lovely sandwich.
I'm going to eat one with an unruly amount of butter, and then once they've cooled, we'll put in all our fillings and have a real dinner.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us for another night, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye.